Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Popstrology podcast. My name is Jessie James, and today we are going to be talking about the astrology of Olivia Rodrigo. I am such a pop girl's girl. I have been obsessed with Olivia Rodrigo since the moment Driver's License hit the airwaves. There are so many videos of me doing Driver's License drunk at karaoke in the year 2021. I was everywhere.
Today I drove through the suburbs and pictured I was driving home too. You guys are so cute.
I was not hitting notes.
And I just can't imagine how you could be so okay now that I'm gone.
It was very, very fun. I definitely romanticized that period of my life. And so Olivia has such a special place in my heart, and I'm really excited to be talking about her astrology. I honestly probably could have done a 3-hour episode about everything in her chart because it's so interesting, but I picked a few key highlights, including something that's going to help us understand the astrology of 2026 overall. So I'm very excited about this episode. Before I dive in, I want to talk a little about what's been on my mind. As a millennial, and I'm sure Gen Z people feel very similarly, it is very hard to understand and be disillusioned of and internalize the fact that no one older than us can really fully understand what we've gone through. Gen X, but also like specifically the boomers, specifically my parents' generation, because we have never had a viable future. We were told all these things, and then we had the rug pulled out from under us. They were like, yeah, if you do well in school and you get a degree, then you can get a great job and you can just be there forever. And you know, that's not true. It was true for a while, I guess, if you were born at a right time in the millennial generation, because if you were graduating from college in 2008, then you were shit out of luck at that point. And then for me, who graduated from college in 2015, it was true for about 8 years. And then I got laid off, and then I got laid off again. And it just became this environment where people were just getting laid off. Like no jobs were stable, no jobs were secure. And now we're contending with AI. It was like, you just have to be really good at school and be smart and like learn and get a degree, and then you can have a job for 10 years until we replace you with AI. We replace you with someone who never went to school, with someone who doesn't even have conscious thought, and they can do your job for you, because actually your job can be done by a robot, because we at Company X do not actually value your creativity, your intelligence, your abilities beyond your ability to do a rote task that a computer could do. And often these aren't even like quote unquote rote tasks that a computer can do. They are things that specifically need conscious intervention and human thought, like art, for example, like music. And they're just using AI to replicate other people's work, meaning that nothing new ever gets created. Have you all seen the show Pluribus? Because I think that's a really good example of what's going on here. Carol Sturka, the main character of Pluribus, is an author. And when everyone else besides her and the 12 other people who are not in the hive mind, I think it's 11 now because that one girl did convert, they already know everything. They have access into each other's brains. Every piece of art that's ever been thought of has already been known by everyone. They can't experience new art. It's all just a regurgitation of whatever they already know. So they want Carol to write a new book because they want to be able to experience new art. Like, this is exactly what AI is doing. AI is the hive mind is one interpretation. There's so many things I could say about Pluribus. But anyway, biggest bait and switch in history. And they were like, yeah, you guys took out all that student loan debt. You're stupid. You should have known better than that, silly goose. Yeah, we told you could only get a job if you had a college degree, but that didn't mean you were supposed to go into debt to get the college degree. Babe, that was so dumb of you. How could you be stupid at age 18? Wow, you really messed that one up. And this is just the basis, right? This is just foundational security. This is just shelter, food, and health insurance, and like transportation. Like, this is people trying to get their basic needs met. And then we look at psychologically how the current events are impacting us and how, you know, all of the once in a lifetime tragedies that have happened every year, our whole lives have impacted us. And it's like, yeah, we have no sense of stability. We have no reason to assume that the future is going to be bright because I don't know. I've seen those climate change charts, babe. I'm not really sure about that one. I don't know anything about my future. I just know that every day I keep living and every week I make this podcast. But spiritually, I have been very disturbed recently because the more I read of the Epstein files, the more I scream internally at all times. Like, how are you supposed to be someone? I mean, how are you supposed to be a person, but like specifically, how are you supposed to be a person who is a survivor of sexual assault and learn, I mean, what we already knew, but like get cold hard proof that every single evil man in a position of power in this country is a rapist and a pedophile? What am I supposed to do about that? Like, what like, I don't know. It sort of makes me glad that I work a job that pays barely over minimum wage, because the less money I make, the less money I give to them in taxes, the less they profit off of my labor. But regardless, they still do. They still profit off of all of our labor. And I don't know what to do. I genuinely don't. But I think that if we keep talking about it and if we keep sharing our experiences and trying to raise consciousness, because some people don't care how, I don't know, but they don't. And so not quite sure what the choices are, but we do share an earth with these people. And, you know, ideally they would have the psychological flexibility to be able to feel pain for others, like, you know, empathy, that word, or at a minimum, just be aware that they have the intellectual flexibility to understand that this is bad, this situation is bad, everything about it is bad, and none of that bad was caused by feminism, women, the left, liberals, like none of this. But the positive news is that Zoran Mamdani was sworn in as the mayor of New York on January 1st, and millennials getting into power is only a good thing. And I think that we can really change the world, along with the non-politics people, aka entertainers and celebrities, who are also doing a lot of work in this area, which is one of the things that gives me the most hope out of anything, is knowing that Taylor Swift and the New Romantics are on the case. And Olivia Rodrigo is certainly one of the New Romantics. Olivia Isabel Rodrigo was born on February 20th, 2003 in Murrieta, California. Her mother, Jennifer, is a school teacher, and her dad, Chris, is a family therapist. Olivia is Filipino-American on her dad's side. Her paternal grandparents and great-great-grandparents emigrated to the U.S. from the Philippines, and her family is very Filipino in their culture and in their food. Olivia is an only child who grew up in Temecula and was born half deaf in her left ear. She grew up listening to her parents' favorite alt-rock bands, No Doubt, The White Stripes, Pearl Jam, and Green Day, which is like, you know, my parents are really old. I'm like, oh, people do have like Gen X parents. That's crazy. Olivia became a theater kid at a very early age, and she started taking voice lessons when she was 5 with a woman who is also named Jennifer, just like her mom. And Jennifer signed her up for a lot of local singing competitions and encouraged Olivia's parents to put her in acting lessons. Olivia started playing the piano when she was 9 and was playing the guitar by the time that she was 12. And her first time appearing on TV was when she was 7 in an Old Navy commercial. She also first became interested in songwriting because she was a fan of Taylor Swift. Olivia and Taylor have a gossip-filled relationship of he said, she said, of, you know, media narratives obscuring any sort of actual truth. There is very little evidence about this, like Taylor suing Olivia for deja vu sort of thing. I think a lot of that was just like, let's put out one headline and see how they run with it and how quick people are to pit two successful female artists against each other. And I think that is part of a New Romantics plot, but that is a completely separate story. In 2015, she starred in a direct-to-video movie when she was 12 years old. And then the next year, in 2016, she was cast in Disney Channel's Bizaardvark and moved to Los Angeles. At this point, she started being homeschooled, and she continued to be homeschooled until she graduated in 2021. And you can see this in her song Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl, which is a great song. In 2019, she was cast in the role of Nini Salazar-Roberts in High School Musical, the series, which premiered in November 2019. Olivia also wrote and performed the promotional single All I Want for this series, which was released with the show in November 2019. She then left High School Musical, the series after season 3 to focus on her music career, which is when she really took off with the release of Driver's License. In 2020, she signed with Geffen Records, and this was a year after Taylor's masters were sold to Scooter Braun, and that whole situation was made very public. And so in Olivia's deal with Geffen, she negotiated for ownership of her masters, so showing that Taylor's work and advocacy has really paid off and made a meaningful difference in the life of artists. On January 8th, 2021, Olivia has her huge break with the release of her first single, her first song ever released, Driver's License, a song which she co-wrote with music producer Dan Nigra, who also works with Chappell Roan and Caroline Polachek and Renee Rapp and Sky Ferreira and many, many more artists. And I think it's also a very interesting piece of lore that Dan Nigra was also working with Chappell Roan at this time, but because Driver's License took off in such a crazy way and he needed to focus on Olivia's career, Chappell's career sort of took a back seat, and then it would be a couple more years before things really blew up with Chappell. In the release week of Driver's License, it broke the same Spotify record twice for most streams in a day for a non-holiday song. On January 11th, it had 15.7 million streams. And then the next day, January 12th, it had 17 million streams. It also broke the Spotify record for the first song to hit 80 million streams in 7 days. The song also debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, if you can imagine. And Olivia is quoted as saying, "This has been the absolute craziest week of my life. My entire life just shifted in an instant." And yeah, I can imagine. She released her second single, Deja Vu, on April 1st, 2021, which debuted at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100. So she became the first artist to ever debut their first 2 releases in the Hot 100 Top 10. Her third single, Good For You, then came out on May 14th, 2021, becoming her second single to debut at number 1. And then just 1 week later, on May 21st, 2021, she releases her first album, Sour. Sour was very highly critically acclaimed, nominated for several Grammys, and Variety magazine did a cover story on her and called her the voice of her generation. The next month, in June 2021, Time magazine named her the Entertainer of the Year. In 2021, she was the best-selling singles artist worldwide with 8 songs on the year-end Global 200 chart. Sour was the third best-selling album in 2021 in the US, and it was the most streamed album on Spotify in 2021, with Driver's License also being the most streamed song on Spotify in 2021. She received 7 nominations at the 2022 Grammys, and she won Best New Artist, Best Pop Vocal Album for Sour, and Best Pop Solo Performance for Driver's License. Fast forward to 2023. On June 30th, 2023, Olivia released her lead single from Guts, her second album, which was called Vampire, and debuted at number 1. The full album Guts came out on my birthday on September 8th, 2023, and is just an amazing album. Like, is very, very freaking good all around, but also confirms that she's queer because, like, Lacey, skin like puff pastry. And apparently this song, Lacey, is based on a poem she wrote when she was in a USC poetry class. And it's like, oh, you were in USC poetry class and you were writing poems about a girl's skin? Gay. Also, the song Obsessed, that's a queer song. But anyway, people will fight you tooth and nail if you ever try to suggest that Olivia Rodrigo or any of the other pop girls besides Chappell and Renee are queer, because they're like, there are real queer artists for you to celebrate, so you don't have to pretend that these are. And it's like, I'm not pretending. I'm listening to their songs, and I am saying, oh, this song is about how hot she thinks a woman is and how in love with her she is. That's queer. but apparently not. Since the release of Guts, Olivia has toured extensively. She had a Guts tour, and she has also done a ton of performances at different music festivals. And she has also released her inner music nerd and done some amazing collaboration performances at these festivals. Specifically in 2025 at Gov Ball, she performed a cover of Burning Down the House with the Talking Heads' David Byrne. At Glastonbury 2025, she performed with Robert Smith 2 songs by The Cure. And she also performed 2 Weezer songs with Weezer at Lollapalooza. There have been so many cool collaborations. She's also performed with Girl in Red and with The Last Dinner Party. She performed a White Stripes song with Feist at the White Stripes Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. And she's also featured in the new Lilith Fair documentary, which, you know, I obviously have to talk about. On New Year's Eve, if you were watching the CNN broadcast with Andy Cohen and Anderson Cooper and their drunken antics like I was, you saw that Andy and Anderson interviewed Brandi Carlile on a live stream, and they played a game called Do Lesbians Give a Damn About? And one of those things they asked was, do lesbians give a damn about the new Lilith Fair documentary? And Brandi was like, of course we do. And then the next question was,
Do lesbians give a damn about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's upcoming wedding?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I
think especially the, what do they call them? The Gaylors. I think the Gaylors really give a damn about it.
Yes, the Gaylors.
And
Do
then
lesbians give a damn?
The gay Taylor Swift fans.
The gay Swifties, yes. Do lesbians give a damn about Meghan Markle's?
guys, this is unbelievably crazy. Like, this is the biggest win for Gaylors imaginable. Our community is tiny. Like, I need people to understand that there are like 4 million people in the Taylor Swift subreddit, like more than 200,000 people in the Taylor Swift Snark subreddit, but only 50,000 in the Gaylor subreddit. We are a very tight-knit and close community. I think our voice is pretty loud because people are always telling me to stop talking about what I'm talking about, which I will never do. But it seems like people assume that Gaylors are much larger than we are, but we are really not. So for us to be mentioned on national TV on New Year's Eve by Brandi Carlile, and then Andy Cohen was like, the Gaylors. Like, that is nuts. And it's especially amazing and proves that it's nothing but a win for the Gaylors, because some people were like, oh, she's making fun of you. She is not. Brandi Carlile has explicitly spoken about how it's okay to speculate queer meanings into art, specifically related to Taylor Swift.
Do I like Taylor Swift? Yeah, totally. And Evangeline. God, Evangeline's really into Taylor Swift right now. Do I have any thoughts or feelings about whether or not it's okay to speculate a public figure's sexuality and interpret their art through queer lens? Oh yeah, I think it's absolutely okay. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm assuming by TS you mean Taylor Swift. Yeah, I think it's fine. We should be able to talk about anyone's sexuality. In fact, we talk about straight people's sexuality constantly. Everything. Everyone they date, everyone they've ever had a crush on. It's not a taboo subject. And to even anticipate or pretend that it's a taboo subject, to speculate around someone's sexuality stigmatizes it.
So thank you very much, Brandi Carlile. And also, they kept mentioning Taylor and Travis throughout the broadcast. I was like, what is happening here? Andy Cohen made Anderson Cooper do a dramatic reading of the lyrics to the song Wood.
Okay, well, here's the song. This is Taylor Swift, Wood. What's it about? It's about her fiance. It's about her fiance. Okay. It's about her fiance, Travis.
Taylor Swift, Wood, lyrics.
Okay.
Forgive me, it sounds cocky. He advertised me and opened my eyes. Oh.
Just keep going.
Redwood tree, getting hard to see. His love was the key that opened my thighs. Girls, I don't need to catch the K to know.
Which was so funny because this was like every Gaylor listening to the song Wood on October 3rd, 2025. We were like, his love was the key that opened my thighs? Anyway, the upcoming Olivia Rodrigo news is that she is likely going to release her third album in the year 2026. Both Sour and Guts had the thematic color purple, but she has teased that the third Olivia Rodrigo album is going to be red when she wore a red shirt at a performance with the number 3 on it. And in an October 2025 Nylon interview, she said, "I won't say too much, but I think 2026 is going to be a busy year for me." And I think 2026 is going to be a busy year for most musical artists if we're thinking that the whole like New Romantics Burning It Down happens this year, which is seeming to come on very, very fast. Doechii released a new song featuring SZA called Girl Get Up on January 1st that has already become my most played song of the year. Like, it's so fantastic, but it really set the freaking tone for the year. It's you are misogynistic and I'm going to tell everyone all the misogynistic things that you do, and also I'm God, and also I am going to continue to slay because I work hard and I deserve it. And it's just like, well, yes. Case closed. That's the end. If you're interested, I have also done episodes about both Doechii and SZA, which you can find here wherever you're listening to my podcast, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Anyway, that is a brief overview of Olivia Rodrigo's life so far. I am very, very excited to see where she goes from here because she is only 22. She is going to turn 23 on February 20th this year. She was born on February 20th, 2003 at 3 o'clock a.m. in Murrieta, California, and this is her chart. She is a Pisces Sun, a Libra Moon, and a Capricorn Rising. Being a Capricorn rising means that her chart ruler is Saturn, and her being born at 3 a.m. means that she has a night chart. So Saturn is considered her out of sect malefic and is therefore the most difficult planet in her chart. As I mentioned, Olivia is about to turn 23 in a little less than 2 months, and 23 is a 12th house profection year, which is a very difficult year, but it's also the year of your second Jupiter return. So this will be a hard year with her being in her 12th house profection year, but also it's her Jupiter return, and Jupiter is her Time Lord for the year, being the ruler of her 12th house, which is Sagittarius. Her birthday is also on February 20th, which is the date of the exact Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees Aries. So her solar return chart for this year is going to look freaking crazy. Like, I am so interested in what's going to happen with Olivia Rodrigo this year. I think that she is going to be a huge major force for change, and I'm really excited to see what we get from her. Olivia's chart is so interesting for so many reasons. As I mentioned, I could probably talk about it for 3 hours. The first one I want to mention is that her ascendant, her rising, is at 0 degrees of Capricorn. And a 0 degree anything is considered a critical degree. The 0th degree has a lot of the energy of Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. And Capricorn is a cardinal sign, much like Aries is. So it also has this like cardinality, this like, I am ready to go. I am a pioneer. I am a trailblazer. I am a leader. The 0th degree, though, can also have this energy of naivete, like, I've never done this before. You know, this is my first time trying this. I'm going to give it my all, but obviously there will be pitfalls and stumbles along the way when you're doing something for the first time. So that's the shadow side of this critical degree, but the main signification of it is like being unjaded and just being ready to go. And she started, you know, being a theater kid, learning acting and singing and piano and guitar so early in her life. Like, it's clear that she was very driven for this to achieve that much success at 18 years old. I mean, absolutely insane. She clearly is a very special person, and this 0 degree Capricorn rising says as much. Even like re-listening to Guts in preparation for this podcast episode, I was like, wow, there are things that she wrote in these songs when she was like 19, 20 years old that I'm like, oh my God, what an amazing way to put that now. And I'm 32. She is so ahead of her time, which is also very Capricorn. I'm only going to talk about one Sabian symbol in this episode, but I really loved them. I think it's so fun to think about life and astrological placements in terms of like little riddles. I think that's so much fun. Once again, everyone in my life hates it but me, so it's definitely a personal thing. I, as a Pisces rising and a Gemini moon, love a riddle. So the Sabian symbol for the 1st degree of Capricorn is an Indian chief claims recognition and power from the assembled tribe. These are not all like quote unquote politically correct. Like, I don't think these would fly if they were released in the past decade, but they were released in like the 1920s. And so they're a little outdated, but the meanings are definitely still highly applicable. To interpret the Sabian symbol, you just have to think about how like the chief is a strong person in a position of power and authority, and they are staking their claim and place among the people that they represent. And this Sabian symbol is quite connected to Jesus, who of course was a Capricorn and then was an Aries. I don't know how that actually works. Is my rebirth date my new birthday? You know, you can never really know with these things. But Jesus's karmic lesson was to rise above the crowd, to claim power in situations, places, and with people, and to accept any consequences such a claim could lead to. The Sabian symbol can also indicate a struggle for control. These people can be challenged to remind the people around them of their leadership qualities and their ability to be strong, reliable, and accountable, so that when people challenge their authority and try to come for their power, they have the backing of their tribe or their group around them because they are well respected for their leadership capabilities. The Sabian symbol can also be about finding your own internal authority and believing in yourself, acknowledging your own courage, standing firm in your belief in yourself, no matter what comes your way. And a suggested proverb from the Sabian symbol was, "He is not fit to command others that cannot command himself." So a lot of this sort of like cardinal 0 degree, claiming my power, experiencing things, doing this life for the first time. This and other 0 degree placements are usually a signature of someone who's on either their first life or like their first life doing this genre of thing, etc. The two other placements that Olivia has in the sign of Capricorn, her first house, are Chiron, an asteroid that represents the wounded healer, and Venus, the planet of beauty and harmony and aesthetics and relationship and comfort and material goods. I mentioned that Saturn is Olivia's out-of-sect malefic, making it the most challenging planet in her chart. Venus is her benefic of sect, making it the most positive planet in her chart. And here, right in her first house, it is very much a part of who she is every day. Where Venus is in your chart tends to describe your relationship style, what you value, and what and who you find attractive. People with Venus in the first house are overall people who are a lot of fun to be around, who bring a lot of humor and joy to other people's lives, and who have legendary good looks and an inner beauty to match. And when you look at celebrities, so many of them, especially people who are prized for their beauty, have Venus in the first house. It is a very common placement of very beautiful people. These people include, but are not limited to, there's a lot that I picked this list from: Rihanna, Sophie Turner, Shakira, Judy Garland, Angelina Jolie, Cameron Diaz, Emily Ratajkowski, Anna Nicole Smith, Doechii, and Solange. They are known for their beauty, their charm, and their grace, and they tend to have lives that appear easy from the outside and are not necessarily at all easy. I mean, if you look at Judy Garland, Anna Nicole Smith, these are people who struggled with fame and substance abuse and exploitation from a very early age. They did not have easy lives at all. But from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, she's famous, she's beautiful, she's talented, she's famous, she's a star, she's charming, she's graceful, she's got an easy life. But that's just because they make their life look easy, because they have the beauty, the charm, the grace, the talent, etc. They not only have this sort of like angelic appearance that can take people aback at first glance, but they are also often very interested in and invested in fashion and aesthetics. And as beautiful as they are, they will tend to have like an idealized image of what they should look like and should be like in their head. And they like claw their way to it. They're like, unless I can be this perfect idealized version of myself, then I'm not good enough. These people struggle a lot with perfectionism. And this comes through very clearly in a lot of Olivia's songs. To quote two songs from Guts, in Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl, she says, "I hate all of my clothes, feels like my skin doesn't fit right over my bones." And then she has a whole song called Pretty Isn't Pretty, where she says, "Pretty isn't pretty enough. I could try every lipstick in every shade," etc., etc. These people also might have experienced a lot of bullying and envy growing up. Insecure people who want nothing more than to tear them down. And even though they have so much natural beauty, it can be hard for them to see and recognize that in themselves First, because of this like idealized perfect version that I talked about, but also because they've just had so much negative energy projected on them from envious, insecure people. They also attract a lot of superficial people who are drawn in by their beauty, but do not actually care about them as a person. And so they can feel like even commodified in this way, or just like made to be a symbol, but not necessarily actually understood or seen as a person who has depth. The last thing I'll say about Venus in the first house is it can also be someone who struggles with indecision and wants a partner, whether that's romantic or platonic or business, who is very decisive. Because with Venus in the first house, Venus is harmonious. Venus rules the sign Libra, the sign of the scales and of harmony. So they're sort of like, I just want to go along for the ride. Like, why do I have to choose? You choose. I'm just here. I'm in the passenger seat. I'm having fun. I'm DJing. I'm setting the vibe for this car ride, but you definitely need to choose what restaurant we're going to or what our destination is on this road trip, etc. However, this changes if they know there's something that specifically will bring them a lot of pleasure. They want to go seek that, whether that's a certain meal that they want or a certain sweet treat. That's when their stubbornness kicks in. And if they drive to that bakery and they see that it's unexpectedly closed or that they're out of that item, that will really throw off their energy and their mood. Olivia's Venus is in Capricorn, and Capricorn is a bit of a difficult placement for Venus because it's ruled by Saturn, and Venus being the lesser benefic, Saturn being the greater malefic. They have very, very different energies, and Venus, in it, all of its like harmony and sweetness, can really struggle under Saturn's scarcity. Saturn is very bare bones. It's like, what do we need to live? And Venus is like, what do we need to thrive? And trying to figure out that balance of these two things. A Capricorn Venus can be very pessimistic when it comes to love. Saturn is the planet of time. And so often what these people can do is completely put romance on the back burner until they have accomplished all of their life goals and missions. They're like, that comes first. Romance comes later. And in doing so, if they still want to date, they tend to intentionally go for partners who aren't a good fit for them so that they can experience dating but have no threat to like their self-sufficiency and their goals and their drive. They can also be cold and distant towards potential suitors for the same reason, like a defense mechanism, and they have a tendency to self-sabotage. It's very likely that these people won't have like a committed and fulfilling relationship until after their first Saturn return between the ages of like 27 and 30. But there's also a possibility that these people could be in like a long-term committed relationship when they're young, like in their 20s, and then their Saturn return comes, and that's the time when they have to reevaluate how this relationship is going. If it's built on a solid and stable foundation, if it's unshakable, it will continue. But you know, the Saturn return rocks everything up. It's a Tower card moment. And so if this relationship is not built on a stable and solid foundation, if it's not a really good relationship that aligns really well with both of your life goals and the achievement of all of that stuff, it will dissolve in the Saturn return. And then you have to figure your life out by yourself, which I think is something that you should do anyway. And then you can get back into the dating pool. Capricorn Venus also have standards that are extremely important to them. They want to be with someone who's mature and committed and goal-oriented. If they can't find someone who meets their criteria, they're likely to go a long time between relationships because they will not enter a relationship with a person who doesn't meet their criteria. And this can also make dating a Capricorn Venus feel a bit like a job interview, but they just want to make sure that you check their boxes if they're going to consider you as a serious contender. They might like date you or hook up with you if you don't check all their boxes. They might pencil you in as one of these intentional self-sabotage relationships that they do just to feel something, but you're definitely not a serious long-term option for them unless you meet every single box on their checklist. And the destiny for someone who has Venus in the sign of Capricorn is to learn the importance of patience and self-worth in romantic relationships. All of their failed relationships are lessons that teach these people to prioritize themselves, their goals, and their desires. And all women should take a lesson from Capricorn Venus because this is what we should all be doing. We should all put ourselves first. It is so important to recognize that women are socialized to put everyone else before ourselves But men are largely socialized to put themselves first. And so unless you put yourself first, you will never be in an equitable relationship with a man. If I want women to understand one thing from this episode or this podcast or whatever, it's you are the only one who's going to put yourself first, so you better do it. Right next to Olivia's Venus is her Chiron. And so having a Chiron in the first house means that your major unhealed wound is your basic sense of self, identity, and self-worth. Right in the first house, the house of I, the house of you, the house that you live your life from. Having that Chiron, that wounded healer right there is like, hey, you're going to have a wound about who you are. But once you fix it, you will have so much ability to help other people understand who they are. And I really strongly think that Olivia is helping people do this through her music, through her very vulnerable confessional songwriting. Chiron in the first house can manifest as pleasing other people in order to survive, making yourself sick to avoid making decisions or taking action. There's more of that indecision that we have with her first house Venus. Feeling ugly or deformed, feeling ashamed or embarrassed by your body, feeling awkward or uncoordinated, and being self-conscious and insecure. Once again, like I could go through her discography and like check off those boxes. Like these are all things that she talks about. It's very clear that she experiences them. And I'm really glad that she has the outlet of songwriting and musical performance to use as a catharsis, as a creative outlet to work through these wounds in herself and thereby heal them and hopefully start the healing process in others, specifically with young girls who really, really need to hear this and understand that they are not the only person who feels this way, that it's a very, very normal feeling to have, like being so awkward and out of control in your own skin. Like that is part of growing up. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Having Chiron in the sign of Capricorn indicates deep wounds around Capricornian themes. So success, authority, responsibility, and the capacity to achieve recognition and status. This harkens back to the Sabian symbol for her ascendant for one Capricorn, the Indian chief, claiming his power and recognition among his tribe. She has a natural wound where it's like, that's not me. I'm not that. This is a hallmark of someone who deals a lot with like imposter syndrome and feeling like they're not good enough for any of the things that they're asked to do, but then having to do them anyway. Like healing her Chiron in the first house is like being scared and doing it anyway and doing her best and succeeding and then being like, oh, I didn't think I could do it. And then I did it and I did it really well. And then gaining that self-worth and that self-belief and self-love. Before they do this, they can have a really hard time taking on leadership responsibilities and receiving recognition and praise. But when you do finally heal this wound, you can access profound gifts of authentic leadership, sustainable achievement, and the ability to help others build lasting structures that serve both personal and collective growth, which sounds like a mission statement for the New Romantics overall. The deepest healing journey for Olivia will take place through learning to lead from wisdom rather than from ego and helping other people develop healthy relationships with authority and achievement. I think that Olivia has probably already reckoned with a lot of this, but I think that a lot of it is going to crop up in her Saturn return. She has Saturn in Gemini, and Saturn, as I mentioned, is the ruler of Capricorn. So when she's going through her Saturn return, all of this, all of her Capricorn placements and all of her Aquarius placements, which is her Mercury, Neptune, and Uranus, will be impacted very heavily. And her Chiron being very closely conjunct her Venus means that more of these like shadow side elements of a first house Venus are emphasized. The insecurity, the being bullied and having people put you down because they're insecure and they're envious of you, the idealizing yourself to this perfect picture and not being happy with your body or your appearance until you meet that perfection that is completely unattainable. Like perfection is not something that's realistic for people to attain. But it also means that she has the sweetness of Venus to aid her on this journey of healing and transformation, and the things that she can accomplish through healing this wound. Like I cannot wait for her Saturn return album. That's going to be crazy. Like she's already so wise. I was simply not wise at all when I was her age. And she knows everything. So like she's just going to get stronger and more powerful and more wise and better at music. And I really think she's going to go down like in history as an absolute legend. This Venus-Chiron conjunction in her first house of Capricorn makes an exact square to her moon in Libra in her 10th house. Something else that I find among celebrities, I have like a pretty extensive database about celebrity astrology. Libra placements are sky high. I just talked about Ariana Grande 2 episodes ago. She has a Libra moon. I feel like almost every person I talk about, like so many celebrities have Libra stelliums, have very important Libra placements in their chart. And part of that is that Libra is Venus ruled. Part of it is that Libra is cardinal. And a lot of it is also that Libra is an air sign. So it's very involved in communicating with others. It's the natural sign of the 7th house, the house of the other, the house of the way you communicate and interact with other people, the house of committed partnerships, romantic, platonic, and business, and also the house of open enemies. And no one has an open enemy like a celebrity. Squares are tense and difficult aspects, and especially a square between Venus and the moon can indicate a really fraught and tense, like inner emotional landscape full of turmoil. And I think this is softened a little bit by the fact that, you know, it's Venus making a square to the moon in Libra, a Venus ruled sign. There is some reception here, so it's not as jarring. But this combination in a square aspect specifically does lead to like emotional turmoil and like inner problems. This turmoil especially comes to a head in the realm of social and intimate relationships. They can specifically have this like defense mechanism where they avoid relationships, which sounds a lot like Capricorn Venus, but like they avoid relationships that seem like they could be really deep and transformational and like the one or whatever, because there are certain things they're afraid of experiencing just because they know that those things will make them very emotional, and they already are really overwhelmed by the extent and the power of their emotions. I always think about it. There are so many doors that I'm afraid to open in my own life. I know that this would help me. However, it would also be like pulling teeth. I feel the same way about budgeting, about, you know, cleaning up my finances. Like that's a door that I fear opening because it feels like a can of worms. Like it feels like once I start doing it, I can't stop. And I know it's inevitable. I know Saturn is about to move into my 2nd house. Like it's on the horizon. I understand. And it's also not that hard. And there are a bajillion apps these days. If you have a favorite app that's free, let me know because I am interested. But it's a door that's scary. It's a door that might open me to emotional experiences that I usually shy away from because I am not prepared. It's a natural human desire to achieve the most with the least fear. Like your nervous system does not care about ambition and achievement. Your nervous system wants to feel safe. And there are experiences that, while not actually physically dangerous, can make your nervous system feel unsafe. And so they want to shy away from those. And for Moon Square Venus people, that often occurs with relationships. They're like, if I'm in a relationship with this person and I need to like actually get to know them and learn who they are, and then we have a disagreement, so we need to have an honest and vulnerable conversation about your faults and my faults, and I have to admit to this thing that I'm so scared to admit about myself because I'm so insecure about it. Like what if that changes my life? What if that opens this door and completely transforms who I am as a person, and I can never close that door again? It's a defense mechanism. This also manifests as fears about commitment. Like they are so afraid to lose their independence, to lose their self-sufficiency, to lose their freedom, to be overpowered, and to lose themselves once again in these like really deeply transformational experiences that love can bring if you open yourself to it. And also, of course, opening yourself to loving someone means opening yourself to losing them. I think I read that she might have broken up with Louis Partridge recently, though I'm not sure if that was a real relationship. I think he's gay, and they have been seen in a lot of like copycat outfits for like Taylor Swift. They both wore the same like red checked top with these same sunglasses with their mans out at like Wimbledon. Like it's a lot of parallels. I think they are telling a story together. So with celebrity relationships, you can definitely never be sure whether it's real or PR. But in general, example, if I was Olivia, I would ask myself what underlying fears might be driving my reluctance to fully engage in relationships. And as I mentioned, Venus is right next to Chiron. So Chiron is also squaring this moon, adding more fear, more fear, like more woundedness, more insecurity, more defense mechanisms. But also, once you are able to face those and once you are able to work through that fear and actually go for it and be really committed in an intimate way in a relationship, that's just even more power for like the profound transformations that come when you are able to heal your Chiron wound. And some last things I'll say about having a moon square Venus is that these people, when they're in a relationship, can have a rebellious streak. Like if their partner expresses their needs or their partner wants them to do something, they can sort of display oppositional defiance behavior and do the opposite of what that person wants. And I just think it's funny in Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl, she says, every guy I like is gay. And it's just like, yes, that is one way that we sabotage ourselves by getting into relationships or developing crushes on people who could never have a crush on us back. Also, it's just a canon event of being a theater kid. Like, yeah, every guy I like has been gay, and also so am I. Do you like my shirt? All right, there is 2 of Olivia's big 3, her rising and her moon. So let's move on to her sun, which is a Pisces sun in her 3rd house at 1 degree of Pisces, making a nice little sextile with her ascendant, her sun, her ego, her life path. What she wants to do is in a harmonious alignment with her ascendant, the way she presents in this world, the avatar that she wears every day. So that means there's not a lot of challenge here, which is a great thing. Fine, one more Sabian symbol. The Sabian symbol for 2 Pisces is a squirrel hiding from hunters. So while her ascendant is a lot about like coming into her own authority and claiming her recognition, her sun has a tendency, especially in sweet little introverted Pisces, to hide away, to experience a lot of fear and let that fear prevent her from accomplishing what she needs to. In this symbol, the squirrel senses that it is threatened, so it is afraid to come out into the open because of a fear that something is out to get them, whether that's true or not. They feel an instinctual need to hide from the threatening and aggressive elements of life, and I think this ties in really well with that Moon-Venus square that we just talked about, and also with Saturn and Capricorn. And I'm sure that like everyone can relate to this, being so scared of something that you're afraid to do anything, having your nervous system be so dysregulated that you're afraid of everything, like you're afraid to go outside. If you leave your house, something bad will happen to you. I have certainly been there for extensive periods of my life. And the key is, learning to do it scared, learning that you can be scared and still do something. And it's Olivia's sun, so she certainly has to deal with this a lot in her life. But they have a great quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson for this Sabian symbol, which is, fear defeats more people than any other one thing in the world. So it's important to remember that just because you're afraid, you can't let it hold you back. Pisces suns are dreamy, imaginative people who can engage with escapism, addiction, rose-colored glasses, illusions, but they are also very, very creative and usually very, very peacekeeping and spiritual. The 3rd house is the house of communication. It's the house of education in sort of like a primary school way. It's the house of your immediate environment, your siblings, your neighbors, and short distance travel. The 3rd house is naturally ruled by Gemini. Gemini is an air sign that's very concerned with intellectual curiosity, gaining knowledge, speaking with people, broadening your intellectual horizons. And so Olivia, as a 3rd house sun, is naturally imbued with a lot of these qualities. She's naturally imbued with curiosity and a love for learning. She's obviously a huge music nerd, and so I think that comes across very clearly that she knows a lot about music, especially for a 22-year-old. That girl loves to learn. These people are articulate, they are expressive, and they have a tendency to use words as their creative medium of choice. And Olivia has been writing songs since she was a very young girl. She is very good at this like confessional, vulnerable songwriting with a lot of storytelling that really pulls you into her world. She's amazing with her words. Pisces sun with a Capricorn rising is also that Taylor Swift, like, I hate it here placement. Quick, tell me something awful like you are a poet, Pisces sun, trapped inside the body of a finance guy, Capricorn rising. These people are quick, clever, and witty, and they're very easily able to connect with people through their words and be the life of any party. I don't know Olivia Rodrigo personally. I feel like this might be subdued by the introverted nature of Pisces. And also, a lot of her songs sing about experiences that I can relate to through the lens of my autism. And so I think that she is also probably neurodivergent, maybe autistic, maybe just ADHD, and that can make it harder to connect with people. So this may or may not necessarily be true, but Olivia is definitely very, very quick and clever and witty and good with her words. And if you have a third house sun, it means that you probably seek out partners, romantic, platonic, etc., that are very easily able to converse with you and also have a lot of intellectual curiosity. And you can really bond with them and expand your mental horizons by taking primarily short distance trips, such as trips within the continental US. The next thing I want to talk about is that Olivia has her Mercury conjunct her Neptune in the sign of Aquarius, her second house. People who have Mercury, the planet of communication and intellect, conjunct Neptune, a very, very slowly moving generational planet of illusions and dreams and visions, tend to have a beautiful mind and a soaring imagination. Their perception and their creative communication abilities transcend the ordinary, and they have a very high likelihood of being a person who receives psychic visions. But one thing they have to be careful with is being able to tell the difference between dreams and reality, illusions and reality. This placement can cause a lot of mental confusion. Mercury conjunct confusing Neptune. So these people have to be sure to journal, to meditate, to be able to clear their head, to be able to have this really good power of discernment to discern what's real and what's not. Otherwise it can get really muddy, which can be good for art sometimes, but no one wants to be that delusional unless they do. I don't know. I'm a Pisces rising. Delusion is one of my core personality traits. I'm sure some people would consider this a really strong negative. I, however, am sounds fun. But this also adds a little confusion to the decision-making process, so a third strike on Olivia being an indecisive person. This is also an aspect that indicates they can paint romantic partners in an overly idealized light and create expectations for them that are nearly impossible to live up to. And this is another defense mechanism. This is another moon square Venus where it's I will accept a romantic partner. However, they must be a prince or a princess, and they have to do all this. And it's oh yeah, I really like this person and they're great and all, but they just don't have millions of dollars in riches. So I just simply cannot be in a relationship with them and continue that process of self-defense and self-sabotage, etc. And Neptune also deals a lot with glory and fame. And so these people can get themselves into a position where they are able to bask in the glory of other public figures like Taylor Swift and sort of just accept that as their own, when what they really need to be doing is going out and making a name for themselves and getting their own glory instead of just accepting the glory of others. But I think Olivia has obviously really, really been able to do that. Both of these placements for Olivia, her Mercury and her Neptune in Aquarius, directly oppose her Jupiter in Leo. And so Jupiter in Leo is what I want to wrap up with today, because we are going to experience a 1-year-long Jupiter in Leo transit starting on June 30th this year. Jupiter is currently in the sign of Cancer, where it is exalted, and will be moving into Leo, where Jupiter does really well because Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun is bright and loves creative expression. And Jupiter has a very similar signification. It's also a masculine planet. It's also a daytime planet, and it's really expansive and bright and big. And so Jupiter and the sun are like boys. They're besties. And finally, after 12 long freaking years, Jupiter is going to knock on the sun's door and be like, we're spending a year together, bud. And the sun's going to be like, hey, party time, which is exactly how 2026 is going to feel. Despite whatever you might be seeing right now, the actual feeling of 2026 is going to be, hey, let's hang out, let's party. After June 30th, we just need to get through this long slog of whatever is going on right now. Deal with that Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 Aries. Saturn-Neptune, big changes, bad time. You don't want to be around for the exact conjunction, but we will be. So we get to see it happen. We get to observe the effects and, participate in the fallout, which should be weird. And then we get to see Uranus moving into Gemini in April. And then we get to see Jupiter moving into Leo at the end of June. And then everything will be wonderful and there will be no problems in the world and everything will be fine. Yay. My one last thing I'll say is that Jupiter being in Cancer where it's exalted since last June seems like a positive thing. Like Jupiter is the planet of abundance and bigness and magnification and good luck. But when you get Jupiter in the sign he does best in, Cancer, which is a sign about immigration, and we had a horrible ice tragedy yesterday that I can't think about for too long or I'll start crying. When Jupiter's in Cancer, it's almost like too good at magnifying. And when you hold a magnifying glass over an ant, like with the sun coming through and that ant burns to death, like over magnification of something can be really bad. And so I think it will actually feel good to move out of Jupiter in Cancer, even though Jupiter ostensibly does really, really well in Cancer. It might be doing a little too well. And so I just don't think that's the energy that we need right now. Jupiter in Leo, however, has a lot of personal signification of someone who is in some way motivated by the father. The sun, Leo, is like the father. And so this can be someone who either wants to follow in their father's footsteps and please their father and like do what he wants you to do or what he showed you how to do. Someone who really identifies with their father and wants to follow in his footsteps because you just feel like you have a really special bond. And also someone who doesn't want to be like their father and views antagonism as their motivation. There's probably just something around your motivation and what gets you going that has to do with a father or a paternal figure. These people also tend to be artists, but they want to be recognized as artists with a capital A, not just someone who creates for fun, but someone who wants to create things that the world sees and that can change the world. One of the problems they have is a lot of the time they feel like when they're creating, they're being exploited rather than expressive. They feel like they're creating in a way that other people defined. They're creating in someone else's world, and they want to create in their own world and do art on their own terms. That's very Leo. Jupiter in Leo dreams in visions, not poems, not manifestos. They can physically see what they want, and then they go out and achieve it. And not just achieve it, but like have the audacity, have the faith in themselves and the belief that they can do what they want to claim those visions and say, I want this, and then go after it. But to do this, they have to learn to work in harmony and in conflict with other people's visions. Other people are artists with a capital A as well. They're not the only artists in the world, but they need to understand that in order for them to achieve their goals, they need to work with other people. And some of their art will conflict other people's and some of their art will go really well with other people's. But regardless, they are all important and they all have a message and a vision that they want to share. Personally, I think this is amazing energy for the second half of 2026 and the first half of 2027. I think that with this Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees Aries on February 20th on Olivia Rodrigo's birthday, this is going to sort of be like the pinnacle. Like this will be the climax. Everything that happens until then is building up to this climax. And then we're going to see things break down. And a lot of revolution, I read this in, I think an Alice Sparkly Cat article, one of my absolute favorite astrology blogs, which I highly recommend. And I also love her books. But she said, revolution is often very concerned with what you do not want life to look like, with what you don't want to do. I don't want to have to worry about grocery prices. I don't want to have to not have health insurance. And then after things are broken down, you can get to the point of, well, what do I want life to look like? What do I want our community to look like? What do we want housing to look like? What do we want the healthcare market to look like? And so that, I think, is going to come very strongly with Jupiter's entry into Leo. Things will be sort of like broken down and we'll get to a point where we're creating something different. Like none of this works anymore. And then we'll start to be able to do that once Jupiter moves into Leo. And as I mentioned, this is the year of Olivia's Jupiter return. Her Jupiter return will be exact on August 18th, 2026. It's only going to hit it once. Sometimes it can hit like 3 times, moving forward, retrograde, and then forward again. Olivia's just once, August 18th. I wonder if that's going to be around the date of her album release. We will see. I've never known about my Jupiter return as it was happening before. My last one was when I was 23 years old, and I didn't really get into astrology until I was 28. But I've done a lot of research and I've worked with a lot of clients, and I have seen that your Jupiter return tends to be a time where you can sort of recharge your Jupiter for the next 12-year cycle around the zodiacal wheel. Jupiter is about abundance, and it's really important to have like a strong gratefulness practice, a strong gratitude practice during the year of your Jupiter return, because the more you express gratitude to the universe, the easier it will provide you abundance. And especially around your Jupiter return, when you're doing that like supercharge, I sort of feel like it's one of those cat toys. I'm always thinking about cats, where you like spin the ball around the wheel and then it will lose momentum and it will get stuck. I think of it as like hitting that ball hard enough that on this long journey around the wheel of the zodiac, it has enough momentum to get back to where it started. And 23 being a 12th house profection year is tough. Like every time you have a Jupiter return, you have a 12th house profection year. And thinking back on mine, reflecting on when I was 23, it was when I was featured in the Washington Post and subsequently got extremely canceled by many people for, daring to write about men in a me first sort of way. Crazy. And had a lot of people calling my job and trying to get me fired. But at the same time, a new opportunity popped up. The door to Los Angeles opened. I visited for the first time and I was like, I think I could really find like home here. And so doors were closing for me in the DC area. I was becoming too well known. I didn't want to be in that box anymore. But at the same time, a different door was opening for me that I could go through. So that's sort of the energy of being 23, being 35, being in this 12th house profection year / Jupiter return year area. A door will probably close, but another door will open. It's important to be in a place where you're flexible enough to pivot as needed. So that's what I have to say about Olivia's chart. I did look at her zodiacal releasing. I looked at some upcoming dates. It looks like nothing is like crazy. Like there's no level 2 peak period starting until 2027, 2028. So I don't think that anything really big is going to happen with her in 2026. The release of an album probably, but I think that things will start to get crazy around 2027, 2028. And then her Saturn return in Gemini is going to be exact on September 3rd, 2031. She's a late degree Gemini Saturn, and I think that will be a really supercharging time. So I'm very excited to check back here in like 5 years and see what has happened with Olivia and what happened around those zodiacal releasing key dates in 2027, 2028, and with her Saturn return. Anyway, this episode has flown by for me. I am so interested in her life and her success and her birth chart and everything that's going on here. So I hope that you also enjoyed it. If you did, I would really appreciate if you subscribe to my channel, give this video a like. It helps me a lot. Also, if you are interested in having a birth chart reading done, my calendar is now open for booking for the year of 2026, which you can access on my booking page at calendly.com/theastrodiva. You can also give me a follow on TikTok at The Astrology Diva and on Instagram at AstroJessie_. Anyway, I love you very, very much, and I will see you next week. Bye.